Hey everybody, it is TJ and it's Thursday, which means you get to listen to me talk again this week. And this week we are hanging out with my friend Charlie J. Meyers. And I'm so excited about this conversation because we're going to talk about some things that are super kind of, quite frankly, important to talk about in the world of art and being artists. We're going to talk about ableism um, in the arts, and I'm going to bring Charlie on the stage right now. And he's, for some reason, the presenters can't hear anything. Lauren or Connie, can you guys hear me when I'm talking? All right, let me see. Okay, cool. Lauren can. For some reason, guys, the presenters can't hear me when they're in the waiting room, and that's really kind of weird, but other people can. So let me just tell Charlie. Here he comes.
Hey.
Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah,
Yeah.
this is so weird, Charlie. This is like you're not the only person that has had this problem with this. Like the audience attendees can hear me, but for some reason the presenter who is waiting to come on with me can't can't hear, which kind of is frustrating because it doesn't make sense. But anyway, excuse me, guys. This is Charlie J. Meyers, right? Charlie, I'm so excited that you're here to hang out with me tonight. And can you give all of us an idea of who you are, what you're about, and then we'll just kind of take the conversation from there.
Yeah, sure. I'm a contemporary painter and curator who's interested in mostly online curation, especially that started during the pandemic as a way of like having accessible shows.
Yeah.
I care a lot about accessibility and also about like um, disability issues when it comes to tech and social media. And that's just sort of all in progress at the moment, like learning what I need to learn as well as trying to like bring certain things to my audience.
Yeah.
But most of all, I'm an artist making mostly figure paintings around intimacy and portraiture and the trans intimate experience and that sort of thing. Um, and someone is actually right now asking if there's captions. So
I know that would
speaking of
be.
that,
Speaking of
so
that, I don't know if this. I know that this platform does. This is a good point, right? Like when we have when we have tech issues, right? What is the accessibility like for people who can't necessarily hear? Let me see if I can do it. I know they put automated captions on the recordings, but I'm not sure if they do them live, which is a good question, which I'll have to look into. But there will be captions on the recording when it's posted.
that's
Um,
cool.
so while you're talking, I might kind of poke around to see if I'm missing something. But
Yeah.
yeah, accessibility in the arts, just like right here, right? The platforms that we use, are they accessible to everybody, right? And that's something that is really lacking in the platforms that we use, whether it's physical spaces, right, or online spaces. And is that what you're finding, Charlie, that when you're working with folks, you're finding that it's difficult for like the broad audience
I think
to.
that it's getting a little bit better, but I think like one of the main problems that I've actually encountered is they're making like these accessibility tools, but they're making it very difficult for people who actually need them to access them. Like you have to go through 3, 4, 5, 6 steps to get captions on certain platforms.
Mhm.
I myself have yet to figure out, how to put descriptor text behind images on certain platforms where it's allowed. I think even myself, if you have any kind of like processing issue or whatnot, then if you're someone trying to be accessible, but the tools are not accessible for you, then you're kind of like speaking out of both ends, being like everything should be accessible except for my platform because I can't access the
I can't.
accessible tools. Like,
Right. Right.
like, and then people are like, you're talking about accessibility, but your page is not accessible to me. And then I'm like, but the tools are not accessible to me to make it accessible to you. And then we kind of go in circles when it comes to
Right.
like tech issues,
Right. And what you're speaking
Um,
to right now, and Connie's question about captions and how how Connie could turn them on, right? I just looked up and sorry, in your comment there about needing all of these different components in order to make, one platform kind of be um accessible to everyone. Like I just looked it up for Demio, this platform, which does so many things. But they say they don't currently offer closed captioning natively within Demio. However, there's workaround requiring third-party tools like OBS or something like that. Um,
yeah,
and yeah, and Connie's saying, Hootsuite does auto descriptions for all of Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Yeah, and so exactly, like as soon as I put this up on Facebook, it's going to auto caption for me. But it would be
yeah,
really sweet if, and I'm going to look into this too, because it's saying that I could use a third party um, tool called OBS, which I use in other live stream things in other areas of my life, but I didn't realize I could plug it in. So yeah, when we're thinking about audience, um, I think it's so important, and of course we run into this 5 seconds into talking to somebody about accessibility in the arts and online.
yeah. I mean, it happens like even when I was curating like the first exhibition last year, and we were trying to figure out how to use like this new platform that you can move around in. Even myself, I'm trying to, as the curator, to upload all of these descriptors and all of these texts and everything. And I'm personally getting fatigued from my own, disability,
Yeah,
trying to make stuff accessible to other people. And that's also what I'm talking about is that uh, even for like a disabled artist themselves who's participating and trying to be as accessible as possible, the actual act of trying to follow through with it can kind of be fatiguing as well,
mhm.
So you do the best you can, really, and that's what it comes down to. I think people appreciate the effort, and the idea of being included to begin with. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So do you see, as far like, when are you talking like accessibility for makers and for artists, or are you talking primarily about how we make the ability to consume and participate in the arts accessible, or is it kind of everything? Do you altogether?
I'm definitely talking about everything. I mean, my first concern is artists themselves and them being able to access what they need. Um, you know, whether it's from just the lack of health care for, people in our community, like artists are according to a couple of studies I've read, are the least insured people in the United States.
Hmm.
Like something like only 30 or 40% are insured. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember it, but it's, I that is very concerning.
Right. It's a definitely a
Yeah,
huge percentage of the population of artists are
yeah,
not are not insured and don't have access to medical and other types of
yeah.
healthcare,
And then
right?
exactly. And then it goes further and deeper into like this idea that, if you're in a regular workplace, there's ADA, there's, all kinds of disability kind of laws and ideas followed. But personally, I'd say like on a cultural level in the arts community, uh, things are not accessible and there's quite a bit of ableism. Since I started the Moon Cheese Curator platform,
Yeah.
I've had 30, 40 artists message me individually in my DMs saying that their galleries told them not to be public about their autoimmune disease. Their gallery
Really?
told them, yeah, their gallery would not allow them an extra day because they have cancer and became ill, and they're painting like in the hospital trying to keep up with a contract. That they go from show to show and they can't see the show because there's no um, ramps
There's no
for.
way for them to get in. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way to get in to see the show. There's no accessible entrance. and even artists coming to me and saying, "This was my own show," and I couldn't get in to see the
Wow.
show in the building, you know? Um, and I just don't think I think that there's this idea still in a lot of the arts community that you either have to hide because you don't wanna come off like and being disabled is seen as a weakness by
Mhm.
so many people I've met, you know,
Yeah.
which is really unfortunate because, in my opinion, a lot of the artists that have shared their health stories with me through my platform are it's first of all, it's surprising with some of the, like, kind of higher, profile artists who have reached out to me and said, like, "Yeah, I'm very ill a lot of the time, and I'm not even insured, and I have to hide this from my gallery, and I hide
And
this
these are
from,
people
you
that
know." Yeah,
have, like, have a platform themselves, like,
yeah.
that you're talking about people who we might know if you were to mention their
Oh,
name,
yeah,
that
yeah,
they're even
yeah.
having trouble accessing this stuff
Yeah,
themselves.
exactly. They've been told it directly by their galleries that they'll be dropped,
Yeah. See,
you
I
know,
don't know
and
why that
that yeah.
surprises me because, it shouldn't given the state of the world that we, like, somehow operate in however we can, being so, um, uh, like, lacking humanity, uh, and treating everybody with respect and giving them the things that they need, right? It's all over around us, but it's really felt in our community, as
Yeah.
artists. Yeah.
And it's also surprising on a more intellectual, artistic level that we are asking artists and ourselves generally to not see ourselves as embodied and not see our work as a product of that embodiment. And so if you're dealing with a disability, if you are um making work, your work is automatically going to be informed by your body, like, unless you're Jeff Koons and you've got a team of, you know, assistants making everything for you, for you to then have to hide whatever health issue or disability you're dealing with, it's hiding kind of part of the work. It's hiding, um it's trying to hide the actual hand that goes into the making. And so for me personally, I made a decision that it was impossible to hide that, you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
because if you become suddenly disabled or you've had a disability your whole life or you even have a temporary disability or you have a temporary health issue, your work is going to change,
Right.
you know, automatically. If as long as you're the if you're the one holding the pen, um, then what you're dealing with physically matters on such a big level.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
fact that, you know, artists are being asked to deny that that's a reality is denying part of their art, in my
Part of
opinion.
their art, yeah, because
Yeah,
it's denying, a part, if not a large part of who they are, right?
right.
I mean, as just like a full human being, right? You're saying like,
Yeah.
"No, this part of you doesn't matter. This part of you isn't important enough for us to, you know, to bring you in,
But it's
uh,
also it's informing the outcome of the work,
of the work too."
the actual physicality of the work. Like, I'm a painter, and
Mhm.
at the worst health moments for me, like, I'm doing a lot better, but I had to start painting small. I had to get more into detailed work for a long time. I
Yeah,
didn't have the enough physical health to make large, gigantic paintings. It made me focus more on how to paint detailed faces, how to uh, adapt my studio to my needs, and it changed what I was making, you
yeah.
know. And for me to just say to my audience, "Oh, this is just something I did on a whim. There's no reason I suddenly changed," you know,
Right,
like,
that's a big pivot there, right? Like,
right, right.
you what was that process like for you personally to, live with, like, I know you live with pain, right? You have chronic pain challenges that you work, like, I'm just so, like, you know, um, just amazed with how open you are about your journey. When I
Thanks.
see, and it's just really, you know, for me, someone who doesn't live with a lot of challenges in my life, like it's just really like so important to see people like you out there, like just really advocating for not only yourself but other people in in that community. And it must be difficult for someone to be used to making work of a certain scale or a certain type, and then to have to really quickly pivot and shrink it down and go in a different direction. Like, what was that like for you, while
I
you're
mean,
trying to
I'm
manage your health and your
right.
artwork?
Well, I'm now like in a place where I've started to paint like large again.
Okay.
But what it actually did for me, was at first there was this sort of resistance of like of a denial of where I was at physically. And then it was, well, do I want to keep denying where I'm at and not even make art at all, or do I want to make what I can? And that took me into like a whole new realm of learning new skills, that actually, now that I'm painting larger again, has become such a crucial part of my work, and that it benefited me in a way,
Mhm.
where I learned how to use watercolors. I learned how, like, my interest in intimacy and grief and all of these sort of topics became so much more in focus when I was just working on these small pieces, because I was just at my desk and it became more intimate.
Right.
It became what it needed to be. I was up close to small pieces of work. I had to sort of zoom in further to what I was interested in, and try and capture people. It's easy to capture someone when you have a giant painting, right? I mean,
Right.
like just the sort of accomplishment of, I'm going to make an enormous portrait of my lover, and they're going to be, strewn across, and that's just, it's impressive, because to manage a giant canvas takes kind of a different type of mentality than a small one. But if
Right.
you can make a very small piece of art that captures someone's attention, especially like if it's in a gallery and there's like a bunch of large paintings or anything, then you've almost accomplished something even greater, because that you've pulled them away from this 8-foot painting to go look at a 6-inch portrait. So,
Right.
and now that I'm painting larger, I'm like, how can I combine the two? Uh, to sort of, and now I can do both. Like, I have both skills now. Like, I when
Yeah.
I'm not well, I can make the smaller work. When I've got the energy, I can make the larger work,
Larger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I can sort of take the detail and the intimacy that I found in the small works and see how I can apply it to the larger works. I think that a lot of the time when we talk about like disability, or we talk about health issues, like, yes, of course, if someone could take away my injuries, my brain injury, my
Mhm.
my chronic pain,
Yeah.
I'd say, like, where's the wand, baby? Like, but there's so much sort of power in like embracing where your body's at, and like truly just being like, yes, this is what I can do right now,
Yeah. I
and
love that.
and then pursuing it to the end.
Mhm.
um
Yeah, I think that
and yeah,
that's a really good point. That's a like embracing what your body is able to do at that whatever given moment, and using it to its fullest potential then, is so, I think, probably pretty inspiring for for people to hear who can so easily become discouraged, I think, when something happens to them and it's like, oh my gosh, now what am I going to do? I can't, whether it's a physical thing or a mental thing or some other circumstance, right? When we get kicked in the ass, right, out of left field, and we're not like prepared for it, it can be so discouraging. And to hear, like, you know, my body can do so many like crazy things one day to the next day, and I don't know what I'm going to be able to do
yeah.
from that day to the next. To be able to say, okay, well, this is what I have in me today. This is my ability, and I'm going to use it and make the best of it, is so is such an
Yeah.
important mindset.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing that, like, kind of changed everything for me was, I don't know if it'd be helpful to actually tell a bit of, like, what disabilities I have or, like, for
Yeah, if
context,
you're
but
open to it, I would love
yeah,
to
sure.
hear your personal kind of that, because that's always so helpful to hear, like, real personal stories from people so we can
Yeah, so
envision.
I I went to Tyler, like, I went to Tyler School of Art, and if you had, like, spoken to me then, I was making 9, 10-foot paintings that were abstract. You
Uh-huh,
know, I was kind of being taught by these abex painters from New
uh-huh,
York, and it was
yeah.
very, like, "Throw the paint, like, throw," but
Was this for your undergrad or was this your master's
yeah,
degree? Okay.
for my undergrad, but really what I was doing, like, on the weekends was, like, secretly going to the Barnes Museum and, like, looking at the Van Goghs and, like, being told by my
Oh.
classmates that I was cliché and all of this stuff,
Uh-huh.
but, I I had taken figure painting and drawing from, like, middle school up to college, as, like, an obsession, but then got to undergrad and was like, "I'm just gonna paint these abstract paintings." But then once I moved to Montreal, that's when I just started doing what I wanted to do. I started having, um, mainly, like, lovers and friends and other trans people come and pose for me. It was a
Mhm,
way of,
mhm,
like, having a social life too as someone who was in grad school and, like, never had any free time,
right.
um,
You
and
bake
just
it
sort
into
of,
your
like,
work, right?
right, like, and I was but it was also this, like, obsession of, like, I wanna capture intimacy, and I wanna capture, like, that one kind of moment between us,
Hmm.
out of this desire of, like, I'm terrible at relationships, so I'm fascinated by painting about them, like, try to sort of figure out what the puzzle piece is that I'm
Mhm.
missing, in all of
Uh-huh.
my relationships. I'm gonna paint my partners and try and sort of capture these little micro moments,
Uh-huh. Wow, awesome.
and then, like, I graduated in, like, 2014, and, like, I did my master's defense in February of 2014, and then just started, like, working, and I was already teaching at the university and was continuing, like, a lot of those projects, but I was having, like, a lot of shows from, like, 2012 to 2014, like, it was 6 or 7 a year, like,
Wow.
it was much more than I could really handle,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I mean,
but yeah.
that's quite a pace.
Yeah, it was too much of a pace, like, and I'm very open about this too, that, in 2013, I decided to stop drinking and to become sober, and, like, to it was part of that is that I got, like, into the whole art scene of, like, let's get drunk at every opening and, like, so and eventually I got to a point where I was like, "Oh, I actually, like, wanna have a career, and it can't really involve me being drunk and an
Right,
annoying person at openings."
right. At some point, you have to kind of, like, make that decision to, like, take it seriously in some ways, right? Take your career seriously
Right.
in some ways, and yeah.
But, like, also it went along with the relationships as well.
Yep,
I was like, "Oh, I'm
yep.
really terrible at relationships. Maybe it's because 'cause I'm drunk all the time. That could be part of." But, like, once again, like, kind of this idea of, like, our bodies informing our work, once I became sober, the paintings went from being kind of like these sloppy cartoon, giant paintings to the more intimate, realistic paintings of partners, of
Yeah,
friends, of people in the queer
yep.
community, of myself, and it became, like, more focused and, like, capturing, I think,
Mhm, mhm.
so that was sort of like the beginning for me of, like, realizing, like, how much my body is playing a part in things. Um, and then by the time I got to, like, July of 2014, I was in some pretty major shows,
Okay.
and then, like, was in had my biggest show and then was immediately hit by a truck, um,
Wow, that's
on my way home.
on
Like,
your way home,
I was
wow.
yeah, like, I was coming home from an opening, basically, and was hit.
It was hit.
So, yeah,
Wow.
I was, like, on my bike, or, like, I was coming home from a friend's house, but we had just been out, like, that sort of thing,
Right.
and, ended up where I was, like, riding home, and I had taken that route like a million times and was hit by a truck and like was tossed across the street. I had a near death experience, like where I found out later I had a heart attack at the scene. Um, I lost
Mm.
consciousness, like I had a brain bleed, like
It
it was
was
a
yeah,
whole,
it was not
yeah,
good
like,
at all. Yeah.
yeah, like my helmet flew off. So also everyone get a well fitted helmet. But don't don't skimp on that, okay? If you pay $1,000 for the bike, pay like $400 for the helmet, okay?
Right.
Like
Because if it
you
flies
want
off
that,
your head when
yeah,
you're
yeah. And if you aren't wearing a helmet, I'm coming for you. Like, because
Right.
I think like we really don't realize how much our brains are ourselves. Yes,
Yeah,
there's this idea of the soul and whatnot, but really it's your brain that is making everything work for you,
happen.
you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, and I ended up in the hospital um, a couple of times. Like there was sort of some language issues and some insurance issues, and I mean, for at least a good 9 months, I had no idea what was going on. Like I was working as a commercial art technician. My friend there basically had to order me around to make sure I got my job done.
Wow.
I'd get lost on my way home from work, or I'd be like 4 blocks from my house at the grocery store, and I'd forget how to get home. You know, I started having severe cluster headaches and migraines on a 24-hour basis. Basically, I continued to have those headaches for 4 years straight. Like for 4 years in a row after that, I had a migraine. Like there wasn't a moment for a good 4 years where I didn't have a migraine.
Mhm. And is it
Or
during
yeah.
this all of this whole period of time where your migraines were so pervasive, were you able to paint at all or make any art at all, or was it really just nothing because you were in so much pain and so out of it?
Well, what ended up happening was, about 9 months after the accident, I started to feel a little bit better and had a bit of relief, but then unfortunately fell on some ice and ended up hitting my head again.
Oh my gosh.
Which brought it all back, which
Right.
sort of recreated and made the symptoms worse.
Mhm.
And I ended up selling all of my work to an art collector who had been in my life for a while, and had enough money and moved to Portland for a year, um, in which I was like in full time rehab, basically,
Okay.
like physical therapy. Because I had 8 herniated discs, I had whiplash, I had bruised ribs, like,
Right. And
and the
this is
whole
all
time,
from that one
right,
initial
right,
accident primarily,
right.
right?
Right, and the whole time I was in Montreal after the accident, I wasn't able to access physical therapy or any of the like recovery care I needed for the good 9 months, because there was some very complicated insurance things going on in my with my status in the country, and it became like very complicated, and which is why I left Canada. Was basically I had 9 months where I realized I can't even hold a paintbrush. I don't know where I am. I don't know what's going on, and I would go to my studio and just start crying because I couldn't hold the paintbrush, or the headaches were so bad I couldn't
Right.
even see what I was looking at. And so when I got to Portland, I was in physical therapy like 4 or 5 times a week. I was seeing like all kinds of specialists. I was trying all kinds of new medications. And during that period of time, I made one painting. It was a large painting, but it was like I had to go from like not being able to hold a paintbrush steadily to trying to make the painting. Like so it was
Um,
just I was on a daily basis like hung it in the living room and
right.
was sitting there trying to like make the painting basically.
Wow. Wow.
And for at least 3 years after that, my hand would be shaking. I'd have numbness in my arm. Like I'm still in physical therapy to this day, um,
Right.
but I was in like just arm physical therapy for at least 2 or 3 years. That sort of thing. So I had to fight like for it to
But it
come
sounds
back.
like painting, like just the act of like forcing yourself to like really push into getting this one painting done over the
Yeah.
course of the year was also like part of your healing as well
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
way. Like it was like the thing that was like your motivation is like, I'm working on this painting. This is what I need to get back to.
Yeah, and the thing is like it was such a by the time I got to Portland, like it was such a tragic year for me, where like I got there and my partner was supposed to come and help take care of me and help me get through rehab and everything. Like a long-term, long distance partner who I'd
Mhm.
been with for about 8 years at the time. He died within a few days of me getting there because he was hit by a car on his
No
bike, but
way.
he didn't make it. And so I was just in this devastated state of mind, where like I'm in Portland, I'm in the middle of I don't know where I am.
Right.
I have a brain injury. I'm in rehab by myself. I'm trying to fight with insurance, like, you know, and but I always had the art. That's been like the gold thread line for me is that honestly, if I didn't have that as my driving force, I don't really know if I'd be here. You know what I mean? I didn't have like especially the 4 years of straight migraines, like
Mhm.
I just kept thinking about wanting 20 minutes to myself to make something, wanting 5 minutes to myself where I didn't feel like my head was on fire, like
Right.
and
Right.
continuing to pursue whatever I could medically to get there.
To get there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And then like to be hitting like walls all along the way as you're trying to get there, right? To
yeah,
get to a place where you can have the ability or the space in your life to make again, running into all of these dead ends or the red tape or the just like systemic issues that
right,
that create such havoc for ourselves trying to get well and to be whole,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, it honestly was I had to move to multiple cities due to insurance issues and financial issues, and it really wasn't until I got to Philadelphia and was able to start seeing doctors at University of Pennsylvania is when I started to see any improvement at all. And also, like, I've become friends with a lot of scientists because I've told them like you guys like saved my life really, because I got to a point where it was like 2017 actually, where I was on my 4th year of having the most extreme migraines on a daily basis with cluster headaches 4 to 5 times a day, which if you look up online are called suicide headaches for a reason,
For yeah,
and
it's just debilitating. It's
yeah,
beyond debilitating. Yeah.
yeah, and I was working this part-time job. I was living at the church I was working for. Like I was barely surviving. And I said to the neurologist, like the resident, like, you have a month, like, and then I'm done. Like, and he didn't
Right.
even try to like get me any mental help or anything. He just knew where I was at. He knew what I meant. I was like, this is over with. Like, because it was just I was in agony on a daily basis and I was still trying to paint while in agony
Right.
from all the migraines and cluster headaches. And he said to me, um, a month from now, actually, an injectable medication is coming out that is
Wow, wow, wow.
a biologic that will reduce your migraines. And I said, okay, I'll wait. And he was right. I started that's when things really changed for me. It was when in 2017 when I started the drug, and I went from having a daily 24-hour migraine to like 10 migraines a month. Then it took me down to 5, and now
Right.
I'm at like 3 or 4 a month with all the different, medicines I'm on.
Right.
And because that really will you can actually make art.
Right. I mean,
So, yeah.
I don't think anybody wants 3 or 4 migraines a month, but if you're going from, like, massive headaches every day, right,
Yeah,
so that it
yeah.
must feel so much more manageable.
Yeah, I mean, I still get the cluster headaches on the trolley or the bus or
Yeah,
whatever, but, I'm trying to manage it, so
yeah. So,
but
for people who Oh, Connie has a question. Do you paint with either hand, or do you have a dominant hand that you paint with? And have you made progress with your hand?
Yeah, I'm left-handed and I paint only with my left hand. I've made incredible progress. Yeah, I've been able to rehab my arm and my hand to the point where I I don't have that extreme numbness and I'm not shaking anymore and everything like that. That was just a lot of work for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's
my
incredible.
right hand's like useless.
It doesn't work for anything art, right? It just
Right.
just hangs
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, for people who like myself, who have the ability to kind of bring people together and to like sometimes offer opportunities or whatever, but don't live every day having to kind of consider um, how I'm gonna like get into buildings to do my stuff, or log on and have access the way I need to have access to it. Like, what what can people in the art world like myself do to really like make make a difference, and not just in a like um in like a tokeny kind of way or something, but actually
Yeah.
legitimately, what should we be really paying attention to?
I mean, like I still have chronic pain. Like I have fibromyalgia now. I have all of these other disorders that came from the brain injury.
Yeah.
And I think it even goes beyond sort of like, yes, you can change tech, you can make things more accessible, you can do all of those things, which people should do.
Yeah.
But I think what's even deeper um is to change the way like we interact with each other on an interpersonal level
Mm,
and
mhm.
kind of the level of compassion that we need to have for each
Wow.
other when it comes to how we engage in projects and exhibitions and that sort of things with one another. As someone who has chronic pain and is completely just work like has no choice but to put their health first, like that needs to be understood on a deeper level, and that's something I'm only really beginning to realize myself is
Mhm.
that yeah, if I want to paint for a show and accept a show, that means that I'm going to be getting up at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. to first do an hour of PT exercises. Then I'm going to go and run for an hour. Then I'm going to go to the gym for an hour.
Right.
Then I'm going to food prep. Like the disabled person that you may be in a show with, maybe like me, who's getting up at 4 a.m. To in order to participate.
Right.
And someone who's 100% healthy, completely functional. Um, maybe it's just rolling out of bed and having some cereal or living on
Right.
coffee or whatever. Um, but like I've realized, at least for me, I can't do anything I want to do
Mhm.
until my health comes first. It's almost like I have like this weird metaphor in my mind where I'm like, all of these like sort of diseases and syndromes I've racked up because of my brain injury. In my head, I picture almost as like a toddler. Like I
Huh.
I can't I wouldn't if I had a toddler, I wouldn't just kick the toddler out of the house and not feed it and not tell it to exercise and not and have it run around and play and take it to the doctor when it felt bad and
Right.
like I would have the kid taken away from me. But so if I view like my own needs sort of my own sort of like disabilities that way, it's made it a lot easier for me where I'm like, yeah, like I need to immediately take care of my health and I need to
Mhm.
immediately take care of my chronic pain before I can engage in anything else.
Right.
Like,
Because if you
yeah,
don't, it would just be a cascading effect of like all the stuff coming up for you and then taking you out completely, right? Like
right.
then you wouldn't be able to paint at all. But I think so. What I heard you say is basically like we need to be paying attention to people more, right? Like
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
things that we can do to kind of help things along in terms of, providing accessibility through the technology and everything like that is great and important, and we need to do it. But you were saying, like, try to have empathy and understand the other human beings that you're standing alongside of, because we're not all playing on an even playing field, right? Like,
Right.
it's
And but at the same time also, like, once I have sort of disclosed some of these issues to people, then it's like suddenly I'm incapable of participating. And it's like, no, actually, I either need these accommodations to participate.
right.
Like if you want like a piece of like I recently wrote something for a platform I'm involved in, and I
Okay.
have a writing partner. And I explained, like, the person who runs the platform is disabled, so she had no problem with it, but I was like, listen, I have a writing partner. I have a lot of great ideas, but now it's really difficult for me to sort of fully polish off a piece of writing. So she polishes it off for me. And I need her to be, the second writer on the piece
Right.
credited.
Right.
And I think what I'm asking for as like a disabled artist is more collaboration and less of this idea of the individual being this sole proprietor of all ideas and knowledge and thoughts and just and normalizing the
Mhm.
fact that we no one does anything alone, whether you're disabled or not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
allowing for those accommodations no matter how someone identifies. Why not? If it's even if you're not disabled, if it's easier for you to do a project with someone else, why not allow that person into the project? Why does it have to be this exclusive thing of like, no, I've only invited you. Your writing partner cannot come.
No, but
Uh,
this is, like, what what frustrates me a lot just in general is just like this, every man for himself kind of mentality that we're like surrounded by all over the place, and especially
right.
in, or not especially in, but also in our in our field of the arts. um,
Yeah.
and this call for collaboration, this call for community, this call for relationship, like, I'm here for it. Like, I'm like, yes, tell me more, say more of that, because
Yeah.
that we really need that. And all of the things that I do, I try to really pay attention as much as I can to, how people interact with one another, right? How we care for one another, or how we respect and honor one another, or help one another out. And to
Yeah.
hear you say, like, I want more collaboration. I want the
Yeah.
people that help me to also be recognized. I also want to bring them along so that I can continue to participate. Like, that is, I mean, that's amazingly important stuff to think
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. I almost when I first started to like rehab myself and try to get back into the art community, I too had taken on the dialogue that I couldn't participate unless I was just doing it all by myself.
Mhm.
That it only mattered or was only something that I could involve myself in if I could do it 100% alone. And because of that attitude, that was either something I carried or the gallery carried or the project manager carried. I would either drop out of the project because I couldn't fulfill it,
Mhm.
or I would not involve myself at all, you
Hmm.
know, and sort of slowly felt like I was being exited from the art world of like, you don't get to be here anymore. Until like I really realized that like, no, I just need to open my own door. Like, like if this is going to be like that, then no, thank you.
Mhm.
And I think that's why like some of this online space has become so important. Is because really you just can pop yourself up on a page and say this is what I'm about, and other
Right.
people go, oh, that's cool, I'm into that too,
Right.
and then it gets like really exciting. And yeah,
And
yeah,
is that what the Moon Cheese Curator is about? Is that door that you opened for?
yeah, because I was like, you know what, like I want to curate shows, but like people either people look me up and see and find out that I've been open about being disabled and talk to me like I'm a child, or or I feel like in order to do it or in order to participate in something, I have to hide who I am, which like has also been asked of me. And I was like, it was more of like an empowerment thing of like, I first of all, I'm not going to hide who I am or what I've been through.
Right.
I have survived a lot and have come out the other end like different. Like there's also this idea that uh you can just like suddenly stop being disabled if you do enough therapy or whatever like that. It doesn't work that way. like,
Right.
like a brain injury is for life. Like whether or not it's visible to other people, like most people go, oh, you have a brain injury, I had no idea.
Right.
But I mean it's for life. You become a completely different person. And yeah, for me it was about like kind of standing in who I am, the new person that I am, and trying to get what I want without having to hide or having to like apologize really for what I've been through, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
And also this frustration of knowing that I was not the only one who was disabled by something and or sick or ill from something. Like a lot of people don't like to use the word disabled. They don't feel it applies to them, but that's another thing. People will message me and be like, "I don't think I'm disabled," and then they'll list like the 20 health conditions they have. And I'm like, "Okay, we don't have to call you disabled, but that's fine."
Right.
But whatever you're dealing with that
Right.
affects your body, like I realized that I wasn't the only one. And I really found out I wasn't the only one when I started getting messages from people.
Mm.
And then when I started getting messages from high profile artists, I was like, are you serious? like and so a lot of it too is just like if I featured people, I always say like it's optional for you to put in your profile on my page about what you're dealing with because I'm trying to encourage more people to come out and be honest about it, you know, because it's not because oh we want oh come out and tell your story so other people can feel sorry for you or whatever people think the motivation is. It's more look at this amazing
Yeah.
art
Yeah.
that this person makes and all of the stuff they have to manage to get there, you
Right.
know, like just to get to their studio they are first getting like I know an artist on Instagram who has MS who's like I have to get infusions once a week and then I go to my studio, and she's like no one knows I have MS, and it's like and you know, or another person's like I have like, you know, cancer and I've told no one about it. Like, and
Wow.
I'm painting from my bed. Like, and it's just why can't people know about that?
I was gonna say,
You
like,
know?
why do you think I mean, I can think of I work with people all day as in my clinical psychotherapy practice, all day with different things that they don't talk about. I mean, that's the nature of what I do, right? And so I have a whole list in my mind of like reasons why they wouldn't put it out there that they have this. But what do you think, within the realm of kind of your experience and knowledge, like why do you think these people don't talk about their stuff? Is it because they're all of a sudden going to be kind of erased by galleries and everything because they're going to be too quote difficult to like incorporate or work with?
Well, there's a presumption a lot, whether it's in the art world or just the job world in general, that if you're disabled, you're not capable of fulfilling your duties or that your accommodations will be beyond what's reasonable, etc. I mean, all of this just really comes down to ableism. When, you know, a lot of the time I find that the accommodations I need are accommodations sometimes non-disabled people need. Sometimes it's parents who need the same accommodations I do.
Right.
Sometimes it's someone who has a low income who needs the same accommodations I do. Sometimes it's someone who has undiagnosed ADHD and thinks they're perfectly on the level, but really they're a space cadet. And I'm like, you and me, buddy, the brain injury and the ADHD, we're on the same playing field when it comes to accommodations right now. Like,
Yeah.
you know, um, and so really like I w- I want people to start being more honest because ableism doesn't just affect disabled people, it affects people who also don't identify as disabled.
Mhm.
Because as long as we're
Yeah.
expecting everyone to function the same exact way and to have the same exact needs, it's always going to be an exclusionary space,
Mhm.
or an exclusionary participation. And I think a lot of the time people don't say anything because they're afraid. It's their income, it's their opportunities, um, it's their gallery representation,
Sure.
it's capitalism expecting them to always be producing at a super high
Yeah.
rate,
It's a
no
risk
matter
for
what they're
them to
dealing
be
with.
fully out there themselves.
Right. And like for me, I found that first of all, I'm like visibly queer, so it's like it's not like I'm going to hide that part of myself. And then I
Yeah.
kept thinking to myself, "Oh, why would I start hiding anything else then, too? I've
Mm.
already taken this enormous risk by being a trans person." I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
at some
Might as
point,
well put it all out there then, right? Like,
right, right, and it's also at some point hiding was destroying my body.
yeah.
Like I was trying to participate in things
Yeah.
um that was just killing me,
Mhm.
like I was in so much pain. And also, it's not just about letting other people know, it's the more you're honest with other people, the more you're honest with yourself. Part of why some of my chronic
100%.
pain continued to such a high degree was that I was trying to deny even what I was feeling. Because in
100%.
order to participate in something, you have to kind of block out all of your own b- physical feelings and emotions. And like if you're denying who you are to others, you're denying who you are to yourself. That's basically what it
Yep.
comes down to, you
Yep.
know.
Yeah, oh my goodness, like, in so many categories, right? Like, who care like, if you're not being honest, it's only really hurting you at the end of the day, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
for
Because
sure.
if you're out hiding your disabilities from other people, you're hiding them from yourself, and then you're also not seeking the level of care you need because you've created this fantasy that everything's fine, like
Right,
so. And then you get even more disabled or even more in pain because you're not addressing it, and then
right.
you dig that hole until you're done. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, Connie's saying some really cool things in here. A lot of famous artists have had disabilities, and that's part of the story that's not told. That goes kind of along with what you're talking about, Charlie.
yeah,
And she says that they're working with museums to change the narrative to include their disabilities and the slow process that you're kind of alluding to.
that's
Yeah, and
awesome.
every disabled have to have disabled people at the table, all tables, community, private, and boards. Nothing about us without us. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you think of some of like the most famous people, like, I mean, the work they made was incredible, like Chuck Close's
Oh my
portraits,
God. Yeah.
from
Insane. Yeah.
his wheelchair, making that and with a ton of accommodations in his studio
Hmm.
and making incredible work. I mean,
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Yeah.
could name a whole bunch of people.
It's for
Yeah, that
real.
he was just the first one that came to mind.
Right.
But yeah,
Right. And just like the adaptations and the ingenuity and like the creativity that comes from being uh from needing to adapt one's work, right? Like, you know,
yeah,
the things that we do as creative human beings when we're faced with challenge, to kind of get up and like push through it, right? Like you said, like I went from really big stuff to small stuff because I had to, but it taught me so much more about who I
yeah.
am as an artist too.
Or like a lot of different inventions and sort of styles by painters came from disabled painters
Right.
because they were kind of in a strange like physical position that they had to get into to paint,
Right.
or they needed like a certain accommodation, or a certain tool. Like I've met a couple of painters who um, like a couple actually in the last few years through my platform who are missing a limb and they've had to like make different tools for like their prosthetic that
Hmm.
will also allow
Hmm.
them to paint and make
Hmm.
stretchers.
Hmm.
Or another person I met like a couple years ago, was hand stretching canvases and only had one arm. Like, I don't know how to do that. So they were they were like, using some weird springboard that they'd invented in their studio. And I was like, this is really fucking cool, like
Right.
and that's also part of my positivity here is that, you know, it when we talk about disabilities, it doesn't have to be this like, yes, there's a lot of difficulty, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of community and support needed to
Yeah.
get through it. And like I'm in full-time therapy, just so I don't lose my mind from the chronic pain.
Right.
But there's also like it's cool to like have disabled friends because they come up with weird, cool things to like make their lives work
Right.
and make their dreams happen. And yeah.
Amazing. Hey, listen, we have to end this conversation. I could keep talking for forever. This has been so, you know, like so many important things, and I can't wait to share it online with other people. But the thing that I'm really uh, like just so happy about hearing is just this idea of collaboration and community and just this stuff that um, is really something that I need to think more and more about, for sure, in a different way. It's not just about let's make sure, like, there are certain like physical things met, though they're important. It's, how can we really see, respect, and honor the full human being who is in front of us. um
Yeah, I'll end it this way. I think a lot of the time when we think about like marginalized people or marginalized identities, we're always kind of looking for like how to like socially maybe come off as inclusive or accommodating or whatever. And that's great. Like having all of those sort of systemic things sorted out, like tech, etc. But really, in the end, anyone who has a marginalized identity, all they really want is like friendship.
yeah.
Like they want to be considered in the conversation and they want to be like involved and they want to be a person in the room.
Yeah.
And like the biggest sort of thing I learned when I started the online curating was that like touched me because at first I was like obsessed about like how many people are going to view this online exhibition that I worked so hard on, blah blah blah. But then my best friend uh, is a disability home care worker
Hmm.
for people who are housebound, and he one of his clients is a mosaics artist. And this is when I just like completely lost it was and really realized the importance of my interests was that he said to Sean, "I want to go to the opening." And it was like an online opening and he got all dressed up and he like invited his other homebound friends to like get online at the same time and go and start and look at the work together.
Wow.
And that he was really emotional because he said to Sean, "This is the first time I've ever been able to attend an art opening. This
Wow.
is the first time like I have seen someone think about us." And that's why I was like, yeah, that's when my own ego was like put aside about like stats and all this stuff, and was like, this is why I wanted to do
This
this.
is this
You
is
know,
what it's
that
about.
one
Why?
that one person who got to see it, like, and said that, like, that meant everything to me. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Charlie, and everyone who's been writing in. And this will be seen by so many more people once I put it up. But before I click off, I just want to remind everybody once again that I have a community that I invite everybody into, every artist that or creative person. It's Bold Creatives Collective, and you can, go there. It's on Facebook. That's where the community lives. And also the website right now, you can download a little thing that I made, which is 4 steps to grow your creative life. Um, Different buckets of things that I talk about. All over the place are goals, realities, options, and ways forward. We want to really be cultivating our creativity and our creative life. And I put together a little guide to get you started there. But Charlie, that's not the important thing tonight. It's really just important thinking about all the stuff that you've offered us. And I'm really, really appreciative and grateful for you. So Thanks so much.
Yeah, and I thanks so much for inviting me on to talk and listen to me ramble. So,
No, it was no rambling. It was actually
oh, good,
way more
good,
eloquent than anything that I had to say. So thank you so much.
great.
All right,
Yeah,
guys,
I enjoyed
until
it.
next
Thank you.
time, I will see everybody later and have a great night, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.